Welcome to Weaseljaw Digital. And we're going to be wrapping up our build videos for the various ships today. Again, we've had a lot of new players coming in and they're struggling to get those builds put together that make them actually effective. So I'm trying to help out. But to that end, the Defender is kind of an interesting ship. I would not suggest the TIE Defender to any new or rookie players. You will not do well in them. They are big targets. They're not particularly fast. They don't have a lot of health, a lot of protection, so they're fairly easy to shoot down. When I'm playing as the New Republic in my A-wing, TIE Defenders are one of my favorite targets to see, especially if it's not an experienced player, because I'm going to rip them to shreds. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, though, if you are a good player, if you are an experienced player, the TIE Defenders are monsters. The way that they can charge energy, how quickly they charge energy, means that they can do some really quick maneuvering, a lot of boost drifts, and they can make themselves virtually invulnerable. So all around, this can be an amazing ship to fly. But if you're not experienced at this game, if you can't really excel with other ships, this one's probably just going to be a worse experience for you. Not something you should be playing right out of the gate. With that, though, let's go over a couple builds here and get a better idea of what we can do with this ship, because there are some interesting builds that we can do. So the first one is what I like to call my knife fighter. It's a very similar concept to my interceptor knife fighter builds. It's going to come out with, some comparable stats. One, we're going to go with our burst cannon. We want that direct burst of damage. I tend to kind of avoid the burst cannons, but in this ship I actually prefer them over the standard cannons. We're going to go with our anti-starfighter missile and cluster missile. Anti-starfighter has a very short cooldown, has a very short lock-on time, and the downside isn't does do a whole lot of damage, but it's a good way to augment your burst cannon damage. For the right auxiliary, we're going with our cluster missiles. That is a big burst of damage. Medium homing. You use this when you're coming up behind something, usually something big like a Y-wing bomber or something of that effect, where you're going to be able to get that lock on for all four of those missiles, fire those off. That's going to do a big bunch of damage. Then you hit them with that cannon to finish them off. For countermeasures, we're going with our Seeker warheads. Again, I just prefer the Seeker warheads over anything else. If you're more comfortable with the chaff particles, go with the chaff particles. But I find the Seeker warheads are just more effective in more situations. For hull, on this one, we're going to go with our Agile hull. That's going to increase our acceleration and maneuverability while affecting our health a little bit. Now, we don't have much health to play with on this thing, but the nice part is losing 20% of almost nothing doesn't matter. You don't have much to start with, so you're not losing much anyways. For shields, we're going to go with our ray shields. That reduces primary damage taken. This ship is so maneuverable that it's very easy to dodge missiles. So even if you are on cooldown for your countermeasures, you can flip power over to engines and really get maneuverable and dodge those missiles. For engines, we're going with micro thrust engines. That's going to increase our maneuverability while losing a little bit in acceleration and max speed. So overall, our max hull is reduced a little bit. We're down to 320 instead of 400. Even at max hull, though, you're running well below anything else. Our max shield stays at 1200. Our max speed is reduced to 91, acceleration to 217, maneuverability up to 110. If you look at the interceptor build, though, max speed is 119. Here, you're considerably slower. You're noticeably slower. Max acceleration is 179. Here you actually have more acceleration, so you're going to speed up and slow down a lot faster. It makes maneuvering a little bit easier, makes dodging missiles easier, also makes all your drift turns and whatnot, a little more effective on how you can play those. And your maneuverability is sitting at exactly, well, almost exactly the same. So you're just as maneuverable. You have better acceleration, a little bit slower. You have shields to compensate for the lack of hull. Overall survivability should be almost the same, if maybe a little bit better on the TIE Defender because you have those shields that can regen. Downside is you don't have a repair kit, but you don't have any hull here to repair anyways, so it doesn't matter. The other thing is you have a little bit more firepower here. Instead of just the anti-starfighter missiles, you have anti-starfighter missiles and the cluster missiles, so you can hit big targets and fast targets very effectively. Very powerful, in-close knife fighter type build. Big thing to know with the TIE Defender is you're going to be spending a lot of time with your power to engines doing those drift turns. If you are targeted, you throw your power to engines, you drift turn. You do that drift turn until you can get the advantage on them, then you throw it back to weapons and you shoot them down. In other builds, in other close-in combat builds, you might try to outmaneuver them and outflank them or something. That's not what you're doing here. Here you go straight to energy to engines and you dodge. You just stay alive. And this Defender, if flown correctly, can dodge a lot of firepower and makes you very, very effective at staying alive. Our next build is what I call the Defender build. Definitely not for rookie players, but it's meant to stay alive as best as you possibly can, which kind of exemplifies the positive elements of this ship, just for survivability. So we're going to stick with our burst cannon on this one. We're going to go with our APS. Now, this is the first build I'm using with APS, so we should discuss this a little bit because this is kind of an oddball auxiliary. The APS, or Advanced Power System, when triggered, sends a boost of power to whatever system you have as your primary. So if you have your power to engines, it's going to boost your max engine charge to 75%. If you have it to weapons, it's going to give you a 75% charge to your weapons. If you have it to shields, it's going to give you a 50% charge to your shields. If you have it kind of spread equally across all your systems, you're going to get a 30% boost to all of your systems. So this is critical to staying alive. You're going to do the same kind of thing. When you get targeted, you're going to want to go to your maneuverability. So you're going to put that power to engines and start maneuvering. But this one also has the ability to use that APS to overcharge the shields. So you can boost away, overcharge those shields just to bring your defense back up, and then start figuring out how you're going to react to the situation. Since we are trying to stay alive, we're going to go with the Seeker Mine. That detours people, and anyone that's in close is hopefully going to trigger that Seeker Mine and take a big old chunk of damage. You don't have to worry about getting a lock. The Seeker Mine's going to do that for you. Countermeasures, we're going to use Seeker Warheads just to keep any kind of missiles off us. For the hull, we're going to go with the Dampener hull. It's going to make it harder for them to get a missile lock on us. For shields, we're going to go with a Fortified Deflector. This is a pretty common and pretty highly regarded upgrade for the TIE Defender. And that's because it increases your max shields by 20% while lowering your shield regeneration. This thing has such good power capability to charge things, though, that charging those shields up despite the negative here isn't that big of a deal. And having those increased shields will keep you alive in those initial engagements. You just have to remember to charge those shields up a little bit after combat. And keep in mind that we have that APS system that's going to boost those shields very quickly if they're getting low. Then we're going to go with a microthrust engine. Again, this is going to be kind of a brawler type guy that's going to get in there, pick out a target, do damage to that target, chase them down with that burst cannon. But if someone gets on you, you're going to start dodging, throw power to your shields, drop a mine to hopefully do damage to them, and then use your maneuverability to get the upper hand and finish them off with your burst cannon again. So as you can see here, we lose a little bit of hull, but we gain a lot of shields. We gain 240 to shields, which puts us as one of the higher ends for shields in the game. Our max speed and acceleration, again, are reduced a little bit, but we have increased maneuverability for those dogfight situations. Now you can go with what I refer to as the Super Defender. It's not something I suggest, but it's a possibility. And you take your shields from your dampener over to your deflector hull. That increases your shields even more while decreasing your max health. Now you are extremely fragile in this. If you bump into any debris, any rock out there, any other ship, you're going to blow up instantly. However, your max shields become the strongest shields in the game at 1680. As long as you keep those charged in between combat, and as long as you use that APS to boost those shields, your survivability is very, very impressive in this build. You just have to be an ace pilot because, again, if you touch anything, you're going to blow up something fierce. So, be aware of that. If you're really looking to get crazy, if you're really looking to be the epitome of a glass cannon, you can drop your micro thrust for an unstable twin engine. Anyone that gets close to you is going to be able to kill you if they can get past your shields. If you run into anyone, you're going to blow up. But the good part is you're probably going to blow them up too. You have a max hull of 40. Literally, if you get close to debris, you're probably going to blow up in this thing. The difference here, though, is you actually gain a little bit of speed and acceleration while keeping that max shields nice and high. I would not recommend this other than just for a joke build to see what it can do. It is kind of impressive, and if someone's chasing you and you run into something in debris, hopefully that engine's going to blow up and take them out anyways. So it's interesting, it's kind of fun, but I wouldn't suggest it. Again, I wouldn't even typically use my deflect hull, but that's up to you. Now, next up is what I like to build one of these for every ship, and it's the Shield Breaker. Now, the next two builds are going to be fleet battle builds. Previous two battles have really been towards dogfighting builds. These two are fleet battle builds. This is the Shield Breaker, and I know there's ships that can tear shields down a lot quicker than this build. There's ships out there that can do a massive amount of ion damage in one blow. This ship can't do that. The nice part about the Defender, though, for both this build and the next build, is that you can move in a way that makes you virtually invincible. So you have your ion cannon. We're going to go with our APS as just an emergency type situation. If someone is getting you down in damage, and you need to bug out, or you need to boost those shields, or you need to get a weapon boost, that's what the APS is for. We're going to be going with our ion missiles, which does 6,000 ion damage. Seeker warheads just to keep us safe. Standard hull in this. Ray shield, which decreases the damage we take from primary weapons. Increases auxiliary, but with our Seeker warheads and our maneuverability, shouldn't be a problem. And regular twin ion engines. What this build and the next build focus on is maneuverability. So you're going to be getting to the enemy capital ships, the frigates, the MC-75, and you're just going to be flitting around like some kind of little gnat, constantly shooting at them, and it's surprisingly effective. It's a complicated move that takes a lot of power management. So if you're not good at flying, shooting, and dealing with power management, this might be a complicated ship for you to fly. But the goal is that you're going to approach that capital ship. You're going to target it with the ion missiles, shoot the ion missiles. You're going to get in fairly close. You want to be in close enough that you can take some really sharp angles against the ship. So somewhere around the, 200 to 600 meter range is kind of what you're looking for. But what you're going to do is you're going to approach that ship, you're going to fire the missile, and then you're going to just start using your boost drifts to flip around to different angles, so that you can just continuously be moving and shooting. So to do that, you're going to have your engines, your power to engines. You're going to do a boost drift. While you're coming out of that boost drift, you switch the power to weapons. When you have the ship, your target lined up, you start firing with your weapons. You shoot an ion missile at them. You're going to do damage to those shields, but you're not going to stay stationary for more than about a second. So once you come out of your boost drift, you're going to flip that power back to engines while you're firing your weapons. You're then going to do another boost drift to a new position. Fire those weapons for half a second to a second. Boost drift to a new location. So it takes a lot of power management and piloting skill. The interesting part is, though, when you're doing those boost drifts, you're extremely hard to target and hit with any weaponry. This means the capital ships are going to struggle to do anything to you. They're not going to hit you. Occasional wild shot that hits you is going to be reduced in damage by your ray shields. Your constant movement is going to throw off any kind of incoming missiles. And if you can't ditch them, you got your seeker warheads. This is a problem for players that are trying to target you too. Because your boost drift is very hard to lead and target, they're going to struggle to put any damage on you. And when you're only coming out of your boost drifts for a split second to fire some weapons and then boost drift again, they're going to spend all their time trying to target you. This does a couple things. One, you stay alive. You're going to be boost drifting all over the place, dropping ion missiles, shooting your ion cannons, stripping the shields off whatever you're fighting. And the capital ship can't hit you, and the players can't hit you. If the players are wasting their time targeting you, then they're not targeting the rest of your team that's making bombing runs. If they ignore you and go after your allies, then you're free to just keep flittering about, doing your damage as much as you like over that entire span of time. If you can get this ship moving when your team gains that advantage and goes on offense, you can start doing that ion damage, and you can really strip those shields very quickly and very effectively with this ship while staying alive the whole time and really acting as a distraction to the enemy team. So our next build is going to be the Hull Breaker. It's going to be a little bit of a twist on the Shield Breaker. For this one, we're going to be going with burst cannons is perfectly fine, although I prefer, in this case, the laser cannons. And that's just due to the recharge rate, the fire rate, things like that. It's easier to keep the standard laser cannon going through this. I am going to switch out that APS, and we're going to put the anti-starfighter missile on there, and we're going to go with our concussion missiles. For counters, we're going to stick with our Seekers. We're going to go with our standard hull, ray shield again, and twin ion engine. So the big change here is our primary weapon and our auxiliaries. So once those shields are down, once the shield generators on the MC-75 are down and you just want to be doing hull damage, this ship flies in the exact same way, but focuses on hull damage. So we have our standard laser cannon. That's going to be doing damage to the hull. I like the standard over the burst in this case, just due to the recharge rate of the weaponry. You're going to be able to do more consistent damage using the standard laser cannon than you will with the burst. We're going to go with the anti-starfighter missiles and the concussion missiles. Concussion missiles, you have 6 of them. They do 1,000 each, Anti-starfighter missile, you have 8 of them. They do 375 each. That's a total of 3,000 and 6,000, or 9,000 hull damage that you can do between the two of these. Then you're going to augment that, of course, with your standard laser cannon. Same exact flight style exists. You're going to get in close, and you're just going to flit about. And each time you come to a stop and you line up that target, you open fire, fire off, and you can just dumbfire these missiles. That's why we selected these. You can dumbfire these missiles without waiting to get a lock. If you go with like the cluster missiles, you're going to have to wait several seconds to lock on to get that big hit. It's not worth it. So you're gonna maneuver around. You're gonna do your little boost drift to a new position, fire dumbfire missiles, flip to a new position, fire weapons, flip to a new position, dumbfire missiles, and fire your blasters, and you just keep doing this again. Same thing applies as with the shield breaker. The enemy ship's not going to be able to hit you. Players aren't going to be able to hit you. If they waste their time trying to, then they're not going after the rest of your team that's doing bombing runs. If they ignore you, you're going to be able to just sit there next to that capital ship doing constant amounts of damage. Maybe it's not the highest hitting damage. Maybe you're not going to be equivalent to a well-equipped bomber. But honestly, you're going to be able to stay alive and fire off all of those missiles, which is 9,000 hull damage. And you're going to have, a good 30 seconds of uninterrupted just laser cannon fire at your target. Over time, you're going to be way more effective than suicidal bombing runs or hit and run type tactics. You're just going to be in there doing damage the whole time, and there's not much the enemy can do. When you're flying this thing, seriously, you can have 3 people shooting at you, and you can keep doing it. It takes a considerable amount of time and effort to gun these guys down when they're doing those constant drifts. It does, again, take a lot of power management. You're going to be flopping that power back and forth between your weapons and your propulsion. If you start taking a lot of hits, you may stop putting it towards weapons and just do your boost drift and get those shields boosted back up in between your drifts for a couple turns until you can get back up to full shields and then go back to your attacks. With the proper piloting, you can possibly stay alive through the entire offensive wave with this kind of a build and that kind of flight style. The last build is what I call just the basic defender. This is just kind of a basic build for the defender. It works well in dogfights. It works well in fleet battles. You can use it for that dogfighting type style out in fleet battles. You can even use it to make an occasional attack run against the little cruiser, the CR-90 that the New Republic has. Or even against the cruiser ships, the frigates, sorry. Butchering all their ships. It's great for little attack runs against CR-90. It's pretty effective against frigates too if you happen to be in that situation. But it's great for just dogfighting and taking out targets. Again, your boost drifts are going to keep you safe in a lot of situations if you catch any attention. But if you have downtime where there aren't any fighters, you can go after those ships. So we're going to go with our burst cannon. It's just going to be better at knocking targets out. We're going to take our APS system. That's going to allow us to boost energy to wherever we need it. If we have someone lined up and we want to take them out, but we're running low on ammo, we can APS our power to weapons and get that final shot off. If we're getting hit and we need to bug out, we can APS that power to our engines. Although typically that's not necessary. The engines on this thing boost up so quickly that basically as soon as you put power to engines, you have at least a bar of engine power that you can use for boost drifts to escape. If you're taking a lot of hits and you're in battle and you want to get those shields back up, you can flip over to shields, boost those shields up. It's just an all-around pretty awesome way to boost yourself up. Right auxiliary, we're going with our cluster missiles. Cluster missiles locks on 4 missiles, does a very considerable amount of damage, something like 1,800 damage if all 4 of those hit. It's good in dogfights. It's good in the dogfighting phase of fleet battles. It's great on defense in fleet battles. You got a bomber coming in, you can launch 4 of these cluster missiles, do 1,800 damage to them. Couple that with your burst cannon, you're going to do a lot of damage. So it's helpful for defending there too. Countermeasures, we're going with Seeker warheads. It's my default. I like the Seekers. I feel they work better in more situations than the other countermeasures. For the hull, I'm going with the dampener hull. That's going to make it harder for the enemy to get lock-ons with their secondary weapons, their missiles, against me. If they do, I have the Seeker warheads, or I have the maneuverability to dodge those missiles. For shields, I'm going to go with ray shields. That's going to increase the amount of damage we take from missiles. However, again, with the dampener hull, the Seeker warheads, and your maneuverability, you shouldn't be getting hit with missiles. The ray shields, however, decrease blaster damage you take. So that's going to keep you alive longer. And the twin ion engines. Now, if you feel that you are good enough with other ships, you've flown the X-Wing and the TIE Fighter, you've flown the Interceptors, you have an idea of how combat can be played, you know how to do drift boosts, boost drifts, whatever. You know how to do all that kind of stuff, and you want to try out the Defender, you feel like you're ready to make that leap, this is kind of an all-around general purpose Defender build. Gives you a feel for what the ship can do. It's a fairly good all-around jack-of-all-trades setup that should serve you pretty well. And it's easy to then tweak things. You can go, you know what, I want more maneuverability. Or you know what, I want more speed. You can make all those adjustments to this build. You know what, I want faster missiles. Or I don't use that APS much. Maybe I want something else. So again, this is a good kind of default build to really get a feel for what this ship is capable of and how to play it. And it works well in dogfighting and fleet battle as an anti-starfighter type build that can move into other areas and do some defending. It can attack some ships. It's kind of an all-purpose build. So there you have it. There's 5 builds for the Defender. 2 dedicated to dogfights, 2 dedicated to fleet battles, and 1 kind of all-around, all-purpose build. This is a ship that really, I mean, any little tweak you do makes a huge difference in how the ship handles and how you play it. So there's a lot of variability you can build into this. So feel free to tweak things a little bit here and there to your fitting. But the TIE Defender is a super, super effective ship if you are a very skilled pilot. But again, if you're a new pilot, if you're a rookie pilot, if you struggle to be effective in the other ships, I would stay away from the Defender. Because again, there's nothing I like seeing better than a rookie Defender. Because they're big targets, they're pretty soft, and unless you know how to play the boost drifts, the drift boosts, unless you know how to really dodge with this thing and get your weapons on point, you're a sitting duck in this ship. And I'm going to enjoy shooting you down. But with that, I hope you feel a little more comfortable. I hope you have some good builds here that you can try out to really make the most out of this TIE Defender ship. I hope to see you in battle in the future. And don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.